Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Cryptids and Monsters video. Alright, let's go ahead and let's do a whole new entry here. This one yet again based on one of your newer suggestions. This one though is a bit of a twist when it comes to some of the Sasquatch-like creatures that I've talked about in the past. So I have featured several of those videos in some of my past ones, and the usual theme though, it tends to be more on the lines that they're ape-like. This one though is a twist where it has to do more with a bear-like creature, and there's some very fascinating encounters, some experiences that people have had with this, along with some sounds that this creature makes that are very, very unique. So when I was reading all this info, I thought to myself, what a great way to share yet another version of the classic Sasquatch. So in fact, you're looking at it now, and it's known as the Ucumar. So let's go ahead and let's talk about all the fascinating info associated with this bear-like creature. So what is this Ucumar? Well, again, take your classic Sasquatch, maybe mix in a couple of new traits, new physical characteristics, and you have this creature that apparently haunts the areas they are in Argentina and Chile. Specifically, a lot of the mountain and foresty and cave-like areas within that region too. I imagine there's probably more areas that you could find this creature, but otherwise Argentina and Chile seem to be the most common spots for it. Now, as far as its physical characteristics, let's talk about that here. So yes, imagine your classic Sasquatch, in this case 5 to 7 feet tall, so once again on the higher side, towering over your average human, and there it is with thick hair, tiny beady eyes, and then very, very large and powerful set of legs and arms, especially living in that area and then seeing some of the pictures about the foresty type locations there in Argentina and Chile. You could totally imagine this creature's physical characteristics perfectly matching what it needs for the environment, because there it is, probably either swinging between trees or climbing up many of those caves, many of those rocks with relative ease. But the twist is this: it's more along the lines of a half-bear humanoid than it is along the lines of an ape. In fact, people state that its face tends to look more bearish, if you will. And I'll talk about that more in a minute about what it could be mischaracterized at. But yes, it has more of those features as far as a bear with a longer snout, maybe even a larger nose, and then a wider face as well. But otherwise, everything else is more along the lines of a classic Sasquatch too. Interestingly enough, when it comes to its delicacy, what it likes to eat, it likes very much so one type of plant. It's called the payo, but I've also read that it's called the payo, and this is a plant that's also found there in Argentina and Chile. In fact, you're looking at a picture of it here. Apparently, the plant on the outside is not what's eaten. There's something else on the inside that is much more favorable to this creature, and so that's what it hunts, and then that's what it eats there afterward. And then as far as the sounds that it makes, get this, apparently it has a symphony of sounds that people hear throughout various parts there in Argentina and Chile. In fact, there's a set of mountains that are called the curu-curu mountains, and people have stated that on a nightly basis they can hear these cries coming from those areas. In fact, they call them as eerie calls, and they're emanating from those mountains specifically. Whatever these cries are, they don't sound favorable. They seem to actually frighten the community surrounding that location. If you wanted to characterize like what it sounds like, the people state there that it sounds like oohoo, oohoo, oohoo. Like that's essentially what this creature, the sound that it makes whenever you hear it from the far off distance. I was already getting a little bit creeped out when I was reading this info, because I have heard sounds out there in the middle of nowhere, like when I was in Good Springs, Nevada, from very far away in the pitch black darkness. Believe me, it adds so much more on the creepiness factor when you hear those sounds and you have no idea where they're from, but they're out there, and then you're hearing them probably in a closer location than you truly think. But yes, as far as the sounds that this creature makes, that's essentially what it comes from. Maybe it has its own language, whatever it's types of language that is emanating from its mouth, but those at least are the physical characteristics of the creature. And now, as far as the actual sightings, there's two that stand out. In fact, one of the earlier ones was in 1956. There was a geologist by the name of Audio L. pitch, and apparently he found, much like here in the North American locations as far as footprints, he found his own human-like footprints there in Argentina. In fact, he was there in the Andes mountain. He was in fact 16,000 feet above, very, very tall location, in other words, there in the mountains, and he found these footprints, these 17-inch long footprints that looked very human-like there in that location. Obviously, it wouldn't be anything along the lines of someone like a regular human that happens to be up there 17,000 feet above, having 17-inch long feet as well, but there it was as far as that encounter. And then also other tracks have been found, not just there, but in a place called La Salta, Argentina, and apparently they seem to emanate around some of the other community type areas too. Now, as far as the physical encounters, like people have seen in terms of it being close by, there's one documented case in May of 1958. Apparently, some campers were at a location called Rango, which is 50 miles south of Santiago, Chile. And as they were traveling there, they saw something there in front of them. In fact, police were called out. They took witnesses. Everybody was stating the same thing, though. In fact, there was a guy by the name of Carlos Manuel Soto, who stated that he saw an enormous man completely covered in hair, and then it looked exactly like everything I was mentioning earlier about the Ucumar. Interestingly enough, though, they described it more along the lines of an ape-like man rather than a bear-like man, but still, one could imagine with this frightful encounter, how brief of a time before people start running away, that they're not going to really be able to see too much of it other than the stuff that stands out, and then that's where people attribute this encounter to the Ucumar. Now, as far as what this creature could be misinterpreted as, I was mentioning this earlier, there's this. You're looking at this bear known as the spectacle bear, but it goes by another name of Tramarcos ornatos, as far as the scientific name. Apparently, this bear lives in those areas too, and people are stating that this creature, this Ucumar, is in fact this particular animal. So this spectacle bear also roams those areas, and I can kind of see, especially if you're looking at something from far away, maybe add the shadows of the forest, not exactly illuminating things or helping or making things worse when it comes to trying to get a clearer vision of what you're looking at. But imagine this, walking by, you hear the telltale signs, something massive, let's say, putting its feet down on the ground, hearing the crunching of the trees, the limbs, and then also the leaves, and then you turn and then you see this. You're going to have maybe a couple of seconds before you start running or realize that you're in danger. But I can totally see why the spectacle bear would essentially be misinterpreted as the Ucumar. The only difference, though, is as far as the very large footprints that I was mentioning earlier, 17 inches or so, this creature, this spectacle bear, I don't imagine has that. Also, it would have to look very human-like in terms of the footprints. And again, bears don't have that either. Plus, it doesn't explain how there's something 17 or 16,000 feet above in terms of the other encounters. And then lastly, this spectacle bear is not known to make those sounds I was mentioning earlier. So maybe it does. Maybe somebody just hasn't chronicled yet. But again, there seems to be a whole symphony of language, of sounds that the Ucumars make between one another out there in the night times there in Chile and Argentina. This spectacle bear is not known to do that. So all of those things, maybe there's going to be a few encounters that people truly do think that it's something else when it's in fact this bear. But otherwise, it counting as all the other examples, I don't think so. I think there's something still out there that would be perfectly camouflaged there within all the foresty areas and be able to live there, and then that's where those sightings of the Ucumar come into play. But what do you guys think as far as this creature, as far as this Ucumar located there in Argentina and Chile? Luckily, it seems to be not a carnivore or something hunting humans per se, but it seems to be more on the lines of eating those favorite payo plants. So that's good news, at least with that area. But if anyone has any more info, anything else I might have missed, anyone there from that area too, then please post those comments below. That'd be great to hear, especially as far as any local experiences there too. So, but all right, everyone, if anyone has any more info, I'd love to hear it. Thanks again, everyone. Take care.